Hi, guys, and welcome to the 2412 podcast. My name is Jeff Holt. On today's episode, a good friend of mine stops by the studio and we talk about ministry and hobbies. Why ministers and pastors need hobbies. You see it throughout Scripture. As soon as they start their ministry journey, they had their hobbies. Even if their previous jobs become their hobbies, they still had one. It's been proven that if you have a hobby, you have better mental health. So today, Minister Lanny is going to talk about his hobby, and it's one you may not expect. So stay tuned. The 2412 podcast is a production of One Church Health Alliance. OCHA exists to equip pastors, unite churches in promoting mental, emotional, and spiritual health through education, media, and pastoral support. We are committed to breaking the silence around mental health in faith communities, empowering leaders, resourcing ministries, and creating spaces where healing and hope are possible through Christ. Hi, guys, and welcome to the show. I'm thankful for you guys being here and listening to today. On today's show, we have Minister Lanny Jobe. He's the head minister at the Stillwater Church of Christ. Lanny, welcome to the show. How are things going today?
I'm doing great. I had an accident in Colorado with my pickup, and I just got my pickup back from the body shop yesterday.
Yeah, you'd been talking about that for some time now. So just in like a minute, can you tell me what happened up there that caused that?
We had been in New Mexico and Colorado for 3 weeks, and after 2 weeks, it was time to do laundry. Where we're camping we're boondocking, so we don't have any electricity or running water. We went into town. It's noon.
Yeah.
Coming back.
Yeah.
Just a mile from the turnoff to the campground, a deer comes across.
Oh, my goodness.
Out of nowhere. We go looking for wildlife in the mornings and evenings, but at noon it found us.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. It seems like everything just finds you. Like you're just like it's gravity coming towards you.
Yes, and I've never hit a deer before, but being without a truck, it makes me feel I was dependent on everybody else.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to have it back.
I'm glad you have it back too. Well, Mr. Lanny, I'm so thankful that you are here. Minister Lanny is the head minister at the Church of Christ here in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and a good friend of mine, great big personality. He is one of the biggest teddy bears you'll ever meet in your life. He can be intimidating if he get the right scowl. But just know that within 3 seconds, he's going to have a big smile on his face because he's just joking with you. But, he has one of the most interesting hobbies that I have ever met. And it's so fascinating. Whenever I first met him, he didn't introduce himself as the head minister at the Church of Christ there in Stillwater. He introduced himself as a minister magician, which was very fascinating to me. And then there's a type of cereal that you like as well. What type of cereal is your favorite?
Oh, Fruity Pebbles.
Fruity Pebbles. I love it. Fruity Pebbles. We have a mutual friend that told me that I needed to ask what was your favorite type of cereal as well. So that cracks me up. Fruity Pebbles is the way to go. I'm a big fan of Fruity Pebbles. So that's a good one. Well, on today's episode, as you know, on the 2412 podcast, we are, this is a podcast that wants to create hope and influence for pastors. And so this episode, we're going to have a conversation about hobbies. And you have one of the more interesting hobbies that I've met. And I firmly believe, and it's backed up by studies, that if anybody has a hobby, your mental health is going to be better. And as a minister, as a pastor, if you have a hobby itself, you're going to see your mental health is going to be better as it is. Before we jump into hobbies, before we jump into your hobby, which I'm so excited to you talk about that and why you do it and the influence that you have with it, I want to know a little bit more of your background, where you came from, your call to ministry, your salvation experience. So my first question that I have to you is, can you tell us a little bit about your background, where it is where you grew up, how you came to faith? Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, we might as well get this out of the way. I was born in Texas, but after first grade, we moved. We went to Louisiana, Shreveport, Bossier City area.
Okay.
My dad was in the petroleum industry. After eighth grade, starting high school, we moved to Oklahoma.
Hmm.
And I was raised in a church, conservative thinking church, had great Christian parents. My father's passed away now, but my mom's still active in the church where I was previously to here. I was 10 years old when I became a Christian. I had two or three of my buddies that were really influenced by some of the Bible studies we had received in Bible class and church camp and those sorts of things.
Hmm.
And we were all just kind of sitting around talking about, we think it's time that we make this commitment everybody else is talking about, or older friends of ours had made.
Hmm.
So I was baptized on October 17th, 1976. It was bicentennial year.
Wow. That's incredible. So 1976, you've made that declaration, that internal transformation, given that life to Christ, and at that point, things have changed. What was your discipleship like? Did somebody take you underneath their wing and saying that I'm going to make that you're now my project? Did anybody do that for you?
Nothing increased in that regard. I kept going to Bible class, of course, Sunday school, and
Hmm.
had great people that were in the church willing to take on some of us kids and give us incentives to enter what we called Bible bowls, kind of like academic bowls. And we had incentives that we could win a wallet or a trip to Six Flags or something like that.
Okay.
So the carrot was dangling there. My real increase in discipleship probably didn't come until much, much later.
Okay.
I don't mean to say that once I was baptized, I was set on the shelf to drip dry, but that discipling really didn't occur in a more personal way until actually college.
Okay. So what was it at a college that it was just because you're going to college that you started to focus a little bit more on the studies, that you started to focus on that, or did you have a mentor that focused on that?
It was the experience of coming to Stillwater for the first time. And in 85, I was greeted at the door by this wonderful lady that just hugged me, loved on me, and brought me in and showed me where things were and where
Yeah.
everybody else was sitting. And I'd never been hugged at church before, besides my own family. My great aunt may have hugged me.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what is this place? This is not the kind of church welcoming that I would had grown up with.
Yeah. So, okay. So, salvation experience, you've got all of these different, man, just the loving people at your church. So, when did you feel that led to become a minister? You got that salvation experience. You feel this led to go into ministry. When did that happen?
Oh man, so I didn't plan to be here.
Nobody plans to be here.
I was here as a student at OSU to be an architect.
Okay.
I like that old saying where if you want to please God, follow his plan. If you want him to laugh, tell him about yours. And I think that was true for me. I just felt like I had kind of hit the end of the road about my level of doing what was necessary to become an architect or an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
But it was through that same experience that life opened up to some new things for me. I loved to sing, and I got involved in a singing group at the Stillwater Church of Christ, and they called it the Stillwater Singers Group. Would read scripture or make comments between song to segue from one to another, and often I was in the rotation to do that. And I had several people that asked, "Have you ever thought about being a preacher?" And of course, I laughed.
Yeah.
That was not a part of my plan. It would be later on that I began to think about what if that's a part of the plan. I was really entertaining the thought of youth ministry, not preaching,
Yeah.
but maybe youth ministry. I thought they were cool. I looked up to my youth ministers as being cool looking people.
Yeah.
But actually, it was a little bit later after I was here. I went to Northwestern Oklahoma State, and I had a guy that came up and said, "I've heard you're entertaining the thought of ministry.
Ooh.
I've been preaching for this little church in Caldwell, Kansas each Sunday, just driving back and forth from Alva. It's about 70 miles. And I'm here to help them find their next preacher because I've taken on a full time job up in the northern part of Kansas. Would you be interested?" I hesitated. He said, "I tell you what, I know you lead singing. I've heard you do that. Why don't you come with me this next Sunday? You'll lead singing for me, I'll preach. And that Sunday night, you can try preaching for the first time, and I'll lead singing for you."
Hmm.
I kind of had my heels dug in. I'm thinking, I'm not sure about this, but let's give it a try. I talked to mom and dad, and we did that. And I thought when I finished that sermon that Sunday evening that I just failed miserably.
Oh wow.
But there was this short old man that came up to me. His name is Elmer Lawrence. He's no longer with us, but Elmer said, "We'll pay you $100 every Sunday if you keep coming and preaching for us."
Wow.
And of course, all I'm thinking about is $100.
Yeah.
It was truly the wrong motive to be in preaching, but that's the hook that got me started into it for
Always
about
the
a year
hook.
and a half.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, but and at your age, how old were you when you were in Caldwell?
20.
Okay, but that's honestly that even though it may have, looking back now, you may feel like that may have been the wrong motive to go in there. That was what God was using for you to get started to go into that. Mine was I wanted to go into ministry. I felt the calling very early on when I was very early watching my uncle preach, and I wanted to be like my uncle preaching on those sermons. And then when I grew up, I surrendered to ministry. I just didn't know what it was. And I knew that going into ministry, I had to surrender to it. I surrendered it at a church camp, and then I jumped into youth ministry, and that's what I went into. I didn't know what it was that I was doing. I just did it.
Mhm.
That was the hook. I wanted to do it, and that's what God wanted used for me. For you, it was I needed the cash flow. I was going to do that,
Mhm.
and that I don't think that was selfish by any means. It was just a means of providing, but God knew what you needed at that time, and God was going to use that. And so, but in this, God was using you at that little church in Caldwell, Kansas. I've been to Caldwell. There's not a whole lot there. And for somebody to have the initiative to go there to preach, to love on those people, especially at 20,
Mhm.
it's incredible. And so, what was ministry like for you at 20 in Caldwell during that
Well,
time?
they pampered on me. I mean, they even purchased a house that following summer where I could actually live there through the summer and
Wow.
be like a full time.
Yeah.
And I lived next door to one of the church members who came over, did my laundry. She folded everything.
What?
She ironed everything I wore. So I'm thinking, man, I'm being treated so much more than I deserve.
Yeah.
It was awesome. They bought me my first typewriter. I had a Royal manual, strike the key hard type, where you got the
Ding.
bar go ching.
Yeah.
But they got me they purchased me a electric typewriter, and I thought, man, they're just going all out for me. And it was when I look back on that, I probably didn't appreciate it as much as I should have. But right now, those memories are golden. Those people that loved on me, they're part of shaping me. And as you were saying a while ago, I might have had the wrong motive, but God's a convincer, and it
Yeah.
takes time to convince me that this is going to be the thing.
Yeah.
And eventually I would be there. I would be in that. I don't know if I can point to one moment where the light switch came on. I thought I felt the calling or I've heard the calling,
Yeah.
but I got there.
Yeah. So, okay, very quickly, let's walk through your ministry journey. Caldwell, Kansas. What was the next church?
A full time work in sealing opened up. It was also a small congregation. Caldwell had been about 20, 25 members. This one was maybe 35 members. And I started January 1 and I lasted till December 31st.
What was the next one after sealing?
But in the last part of February of that year, 1989, 17 miles away from Alva is Cherokee,
Yeah.
and they were looking for a minister
Ooh.
and would pay me, a little bit per Sunday to go. And I
Mhm.
ended up preaching for them for 4.5 years. And in the middle
Wow.
of that's when I got married and things began to click where I had the right motive, I had the right support,
Hmm.
and somewhere there the light switch came on. This
Yeah.
is what I'm called to do.
What was that light switch?
I think the affirmation,
Okay.
the affirming people there. Again, I had that back at Caldwell,
Hmm.
but the affirmation, and now that I have my wife as a soundboard
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
kind of hear me think. She's my reflecting back the thoughts, and of course, with her analytical thinking skills, my wife is just
Yeah.
super smart. I felt like, yeah, this is
Excellent.
definitely the place. Yeah.
Okay, so is it from Cherokee? You went to
From Cherokee, I went to Hennessy,
Hennessy.
south of Enid.
Okay, and then and did Blackwell after that? Is that where you
Blackwell after that. I was in Hennessy for 12 years.
12 years?
Hmm.
And then Blackwell to to Stillwater.
Yes, I went to Blackwell in 2005, was there 18 and a half years.
Okay, and then now you said you started to study architecture, but your degree's in psychology. Why? When did you switch?
Well, so architecture was done when I was out of Stillwater,
Uh huh.
and I tried two or three different majors. Or as I had started as one of my trial majors, psychology was one of those, and I thought that would be something I could complete, perhaps online or through virtual learning, which was a motivation to go to Blackwell because in Ponca City,
Mm-hmm.
which is about 17 miles from Blackwell, they have what they call the University Center,
Mm,
where a lot of the different state colleges will web ITV or other means
right.
provide classes there. And I was able to complete the psychology degree there.
Okay, that's your background.
Hmm.
What an amazing run of ministry that you've done, and you've done an amazing job at the Church of Christ here in Stillwater. I have yet to meet a person who does know you that doesn't love you.
Oh,
You're,
they're out there.
they may be out there, but I haven't met one yet, and you do a remarkable job. So, but you're more than just a pastor. You're also a magician. So, how did you, in the midst of all of what we just talked about, how did you first get into magic?
Well, of course, as a kid, I might have been given a magic trick, and maybe I remember one magic kit, and it had all the typical stuff at that time. It had like the spike coin trick, or a ball in a vase trick, or probably the one I liked was the prayer vase, where a rope gets stuck in the bottle or the neck of the bottle.
Yeah.
So I had those things going on, but I was in second grade when we lived in Bossier City. I attended Sun City Elementary, and they had a magician one day come and perform for the whole school in the gym. The gym was one of those where at the end is also a stage, so it's also a program oriented.
Yeah.
And I never got picked for anything when we were dividing up for teams, but on this particular day, me and a couple of other buddies, when he called for volunteers, our hands were up and he called us. And I thought, wow, for a second grader, that's awesome to be up on stage. Of course, we were scared too.
Yeah.
But we get up on stage and he does this routine with an arm chopper, actually a wrist chopper. And he had us vow in the presence of everybody else in school that we would not reveal the secret to how it was done. So we had the behind the scenes look of this guy doing this trick. And it wasn't my arm, but it was my buddy's arm. He had demonstrated the thing, first of all, by putting a couple of carrots. There's a tiny hole, a bigger hole, and a tiny hole below. And this blade was hinged at the end, but had a handle on the other. And so it swung down. And he would demonstrate it actually cuts carrots. But then he had my buddy put the wrist in there,
Mm-hmm.
so his hands locked in place. And then he places the carrot above and the carrot below again. And our job was to watch the carrot. And he does this, building anticipation. 1, 2, 3 days ago, I tried this trick. It was one of those garden path things that he was leading us down, just building the anticipation.
Yeah.
But finally, when he performs it, 1, 2, 3, and that came down. The carrots chopped. My buddy's hand was all right. And I found later on the playground, people would come to me and say, "How did he do it? How was that working?" And I felt like at that moment, there was a moment there that it was empowering
Yeah.
to know a secret. It was empowering
Yeah.
to know how something was done. I thought, I want to be like that guy.
Yeah.
So I was a second grader when that happened.
So, would you say that that was the moment, like that was the specific performance where you fell in love with that, with that, with the interest of doing magic?
Now that you put it in the context, I feel guilty that I didn't have that specific moment for ministry, but I did for magic. But yeah, that would be the moment
Yeah.
that I knew I am going to be involved in this at some point in my life. I want to continue to do what this guy, I want to be on stage one day doing that stuff.
And on this podcast, we want to we want to help pastors in their mental health. We want to create influence and hope, and we focus on pastors' mental health. So, in this, how does practicing magic help you step away from the stresses of ministry and recharge mentally for you personally? How does that help? How does your hobby help you personally?
I think it's a sense of, first of all, something you enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it helps lift the weight. The weightedness of ministry is very real.
Mm-hmm.
And you can come home after something at church or a discussion with somebody, and things can weigh heavy on your heart. And I think there are times that we see Jesus needing to unplug a little bit, go to the mountaintop, have some solitude and some silence. And a part of that is to kind of rebuild your own self-esteem. Things can wear on you in ministry,
Yes.
and you
Yeah.
need some kind of release where you breathe and you don't have to dwindle on a thought or a problem back at the church, or even if there's a theological uh, problem in your head that you haven't quite figured out. Sometimes it's neat to step away
Mm-hmm.
and then just do something different and come back and you got better focus.
Right.
And some of those problems I've walked away from, I found that it was easy when I came back. Oh, that's the solution.
Yeah.
That's the path forward here.
Absolutely. And it's been studied before that if you have a hobby as a pastor, as a minister, or just anybody in general, that clinically you're in better mental health status. That you can focus on things better. You just even reading helps your mental health better. And so having something that you do on a regular basis, we people that focus on going on a run on a daily basis or anything like that. I think for me, whenever I read scripture and I read where Jesus was a carpenter, he was somebody that worked with his hands, or Paul was a tent maker. And those were things that they did for a living, obviously. But as they stepped into ministry, I see where they continued to do those things. And that was the things that they did with their hands. I think that when we read scripture, that we're called to work. And from the very beginning, God called Adam to be a gardener. And he was the one that was called to take care of that garden. Whether that was a hobby or not, God still calls us to work. And if we're going to put blood, sweat, and tears into our pastoral job, I think that we got to have something on the other side of things to where we're still doing something with our hands, whether it is something like carpentry, or in your case, it's magic. And so, do you find parallels between the creativity in magic and being creative and required in ministry?
Oh yes, I most certainly do. I think one of the things ministers need to remember is we need our people, the adherents to the congregations we're preaching for, they need to know we're human and that we enjoy life as well. I
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a part of the transparency we must show. We can't be contained in a box where we come out on Sunday morning on the pulpit, but put us back away and don't think of us again.
Yeah.
When I show up on Monday morning and I'm helping somebody chop up a tree that fell in the middle of the night, or if we're out
Yeah.
around, I see somebody that's struggling with groceries being need carried into the house, or just the fact that I can go to somewhere and somebody says, "Oh, you got some calloused hands, you got thick skin." They know that I actually do work. I don't just sit behind a desk with a
Right.
pencil, or I'm not this sterile guy. I think they want to know that I'm one of them, and I think that's what we need to have,
Right.
those connections. And I think the hobbies will help you do that when
Right.
people know you've got a hobby.
Well, and pastors and ministers, lay leaders, youth ministers, all stages of church leaders are one of the few church, or one of the few, I guess, one of the few occupations that there's two aspects. One, they're one of the few occupations that they're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I have known pastors that have given up vacations where they're on vacation and literally have turned around to come back home because somebody has passed away in their congregation.
Hmm.
I have known where they were asleep in the middle of the night and had to rush to the hospital. That's happened to me before. That's happened to every minister that I have ever known. That they've had to do that. That is a part of the job. One of the things, and it's also one of the jobs to where you not only have to win at home, but you also have to win at the job, and both are very noticeable with everybody. And so, oftentimes, ministry has no end result. It's one of those ongoing results constantly. So many hobbies give a sense of accomplishments. How do you experience that when you finish preparing a trick or pulling off a great performance? What is that experience like when you, that accomplishment that you have whenever you're doing a show and you're in front of people, you finish that show, you've seen that end result of that end of the trick, the end of the show. What is that like?
I think the reward to that is the connection you can see on the faces of like the kids, for example, that you're performing for when they just light up. And you could teach a Bible class and maybe get some reaction like that. But if you connect it through a visual thing, which I think Jesus did a lot of,
Mm-hmm.
even if it was just visualization of it in a parable, that you will connect and you'll really hook those people more and they'll remember that more.
Yeah.
I'm a believer in that the more of the senses that you use in a learning process, the higher the retention.
Yeah.
So I have a particular apparatus, a prop that I use that you've seen it, the color
I
balls,
was
three
actually
different color
just about to
balls.
bring that up. Yeah.
Everywhere I perform that, and that's one of the earliest ones I've ever performed on stage. And I've had several applications, but no matter what the application is, whether that's about drug and alcohol awareness or putting God first or whatever the venue will allow me to do, when I go places, people will say, I remember that ball trick you did. It's hooked in. They remember the visual.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that to me is affirming and rewarding
Yeah.
to know, if I ask church members, do you remember the sermon I preached 3 weeks ago? I don't even know if I remember the sermon I preached
Right.
3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if they remember something visual that was attached to that and oh yeah, put God first, then you've done something effective
Right.
and that's rewarding.
It's very rewarding. Yes, it is. Jesus often used his hands in ministry, and we've mentioned this before, from carpentry to washing of his feet, washing of other people's feet. How do you see working with your hands and using magic as an example to that? Does doing that give you a sense of accomplishment?
It does. And I think the way that I look at it, Jeff, is just like when I was in second grade, to be called up on stage, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I am doing a performance, I remember that moment. I want to create that for somebody else in the audience. Just my hands being extended, my hand on their back, patting them on the back, coming up here and affirming them. Good job. You did great.
Yeah.
Give him a hand. So it may not be the question you're asking, but I'm thinking that if Jesus touched the untouchables, and he certainly did
Yeah.
with the lepers and the cast outs of the city or whatever the scarlet letter syndrome there was, he would not allow that to deter him from touching people in a way that was full of compassion. I love the woman at the well narrative in John 4, just a subtle reference there at the beginning as we get that experience introduced to us.
Mm-hmm.
There's a phrase that said, Jesus had to go through Samaria.
Yeah.
And you could go around, and I'm told today you could still route around it. There was not a lot of kind blood between Jews and the
No,
Samaritans,
there was not.
but he had to. And so it may not be the labor hand oriented stuff, but it's the fact that he extended a hand and he
Yeah.
welcomed people. He welcomed the children in his presence. That sort of thing.
So we're gonna post that magic trick on my TikTok, on my Instagram, the One Church Health Alliance Instagram, and One Church Health Alliance Facebook. But you have a website as well that has that magic trick on there. Let's give a shout out to your website that shows that. Where can people find your magic tricks at?
So it's LannyJobeMagic.com, LannyJobe. It's something I had put up when I was trying to drum up more business to do encouraging shows at schools, churches, VBS, church camps. That particular trick with the colored balls is not on there, but you'll see a video of me doing a trick with a ring and a chain. And you'll also see a picture of the arm chopper. I located the arm chopper when I was in second grade.
Oh,
It's called Dissecto. So you can see what the apparatus looks like.
awesome. Yeah. So what was the name of the website one more time?
LannyJobeMagic.com.
Okay, go there. You're gonna see some magic tricks. We'll post the it'll already be posted by the time this podcast is up, but we'll get a video of the color ball magic trick,
Sure.
and we'll post it on the various socials, and you'll see it in your algorithm soon. So, a couple more questions for you here. Now, this is going to be a very similar question to the one we've asked before, but we're going to ask it as well. Have you ever used a magic trick in your ministry to illustrate biblical truth, to engage with with your congregation in a unique way?
Yes. So let me also, in the answer to this question, tell you that there's an organization that I'm a part of called Fellowship of Christian Magicians. And people laugh at that when I tell them that. We actually have a chapter in Tulsa, and we meet every second Monday of the month, gathering with other ministers, not just ministers and pastors, but other
Yeah.
people too, that like to learn how to maybe take an effect, taking a magic trick, as we say, and connect it to some biblical principles. So I do that all the time. I'm looking for ways to do that. We share those ideas. It's something that we share with each other so that I can add what maybe I saw last night. We had this meeting, and I can take home some things, some new things for my tool bag. And so when I to answer this question, all the time I'm looking for ways. It breaks the ice with people, for one. And when you end up with a biblical truth, how much more can you improve on that? And I'm dabbling with the mentalism side of magic, which is sleight of mind instead of sleight of hand, where you really get into this narrative, this garden path, as I call it, where you build the scenario and you create the feeling. Let me give you an example of this, of the feeling I'm trying to create. There's a couple of times in the Bible. You remember Nathan when he approached David to address the problem David had
Yeah.
experienced, the sin that he had committed.
Right.
And Nathan tells a story.
Yeah.
And what should be done with such a guy? And David says, we ought to, just let him have it, right? And that's where Nathan says, you're the man.
Yeah.
That's that aha moment or that eureka, or maybe more of a uh-oh moment, for
Mm-hmm.
David, that he would be convicted in that way. And there are some routines that will create that. And I have a routine. You've heard me do this before. We won't do it here, but there's a routine where I reveal three things that I couldn't possibly know. At least in your mind, how in the world would I know that? And I connect that to the woman at the well,
Uh huh.
where when, they're talking about the water and Jesus says, I have water. If you drink it, you'll never thirst again. And then he says, go call your husband. And it gets get real personal here, right?
Yeah.
She says, I don't have a husband. Well, that was true, but Jesus revealed some things to her that she couldn't believe he would know. That's right. You've had five husbands, and the guy you have now is not your husband. And that's when she has the uh-oh moment.
Mm-hmm.
But she makes a statement, I perceive you to be a prophet.
Right.
And then when you see the end of that story, she goes back to town and tells everybody, come see a man that told me everything I ever did. Of course, I'm always thinking people in town say, we already know everything you've ever did. You got that reputation in town or whatever. But Jesus, he opened that up to where she had that moment of, wow, he just stepped into my mind, into my life,
Mm-hmm.
and knew that much about me. And so the routine that I do, where I reveal three particular items that I have you thinking of and you're to project to me, when I reveal what they are, you go, how in the world?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to connect you to the feeling the woman must have had that moment. And Jesus says, you're right. You don't have a husband, for you've had five.
Right.
And the one you're with now is not your husband.
Mm.
And it's like when you've done that, when you've created that connection to the woman in the story, then that opens a door for you to minister to the person you're just doing that with, or to the audience or the group, to let them know, hey, while it might be sobering, it's also comforting that Jesus knows that much about you personally on that level.
Having this hobby not only gives you an outlet for you personally, but it also seems like it makes you a better minister as well. That it brings you up to a standard of being able to relax. It gives you a sense of bringing you away from this job, this calling that you have, and gives you something on your own that the Lord has given you, but it also helps you in creating another way to be a better minister as well. It gives you another avenue to relate scripture to other people as well. Is that what I'm hearing right?
Yeah, I think it adds the element of not just hearing somebody read words off a page or give you a sermon, a homiletic style of a sermon, but it gives you visual.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you again, I go back to that, the more senses you're using, and that's what Jesus did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I ask you, did Jesus ever do anything visual? You're going to think of things like the fig tree. Look at that tree, or how about the picking the speck out of your brother's eye when you got a plank in your own eye?
Right.
These are visual effects. He didn't have to hold up a two by four and say, "This is my object lesson for the day," but you created that in your mind's eye.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be a routine or an effect that's, a magic illusion of any sort.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a series right now where I'm talking about bumper sticker faith. And as a prop on stage with me, I've got an old tailgate from somebody's pickup with the various bumper stickers I'm covering as sermon titles. I can guarantee you that there are people that are going to remember. I remember when you preached about bumper stickers,
Yeah.
like God is my co pilot. And of course, I adjusted that to mean if God's your co pilot, you're in the wrong seat, right?
Right.
And others that we might see messages that would lend themselves to a great sermon application. Honk if
Mm-hmm.
you love Jesus. We've got to express our faith. But if we're going to do that, we got to live up to it too.
Right.
So it's not just like a magic effect that does that for me. It's something I can either physically show or have you paint in your mind the picture of. And I think that's the key to effective narrative preaching.
Good. Good. Let's ask one closing reflection here, one last question here, and we're going to begin to wrap this up for you real fast. It said, "What advice would you give to pastors about finding a hobby that brings joy, rest, a sense of accomplishment outside of ministry?"
Well, I'm going to plug a book that I've read recently, and that's The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in that book that I endorse. You've got to create margin for yourself. You've got to unplug from the busyness of ministry. You've got to unplug from the nuts and bolts and the things that really just hook you up.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's hard for us to do. And by and large, I think we as ministers, this is a generalization, we are too booked. And
Yeah.
Jesus made sure he had that time that he could step away. We need that time to
Right.
self care to be able to have some of that replenished things that we enjoy doing, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I feel like that's the thing that encourages me to make sure I've got time for my family, for myself, and it's not just the church that's consuming that all the time.
Right.
And when you're doing that, I think you actually become more effective with when you are doing the work for the church
Mm-hmm.
because you have kind of re-energized, and we all need re-energized. If we're the preacher all the time feeding others, who's feeding us? We will suffer when we don't get fed ourselves. So we
Right.
need that. And that's a vehicle, a hobby. I like hunting and fishing too. I'll
Yeah.
put those hobbies in there. However, those are kind of seasonal.
Yeah.
And so magic for me is not weather dependent, not dependent on which way the wind's going. Like you got to think about that when you're hunting.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about being outdoors to do that. You can do that indoors. And
Right.
it still is something that encourages others when you do it. So
Yeah.
I love that idea.
That's good. Some of my favorite hobbies is I love writing, and my writing is not just secluded to sermon writing either. I love script writing, like some like the questions we wrote out here, or like my scripts for podcasting, or writing for my magazine that I write. Like that's not just a job. That's my fun time that I get to do, or just in general, just writing out a simple story, just taking 1,000. That's some of the things that I love doing, is just I'll take 1,000 words and see if I can just tell a quick story, because that's some of the thing I love to do. Or I'll just watch a movie and just see if I can break down the themes of the movie and generalize it. Those are simple hobbies that anybody can do. I mean, people will say, I don't have 2 hours to dedicate to a movie. Yeah, you do. You just need to make time for it. It just you need to find time to rest for 2 hours on a Saturday, unplug, watch a quick movie that you enjoy, laugh at it, get emotional with it, and have a date night with your wife find a time to do a hobby. Jesus was a carpenter. Paul was a tent maker. Peter was a fisherman. All of these different things. There's ways to unplug. There's ways to find hobbies. There's ways to do ministry outside. And you have to be able to have those sense of accomplishments. I had a friend that loved building things by hand, and he was excellent at it. And his hobby of carpentry bled over to his ministry as well, where he built backdrops for his stage. And he is actually at one of his churches, he built the backdrop for it, and he's actually been long gone for over a decade, and they still use that backdrop because it's so beautiful up there. He's built his own furniture in his house because he was so good at it. And so there's many different hobbies that are out there that you can do it. Gardening is one of them. I tried to get into gardening. I killed all my flowers, but it's something that I enjoyed for a season and really looked into it. So it's something that it is definitely most needed. And I would suggest for many, if not all of our pastors out there, because mentally pastoring is draining. And so if finding a hobby will save a pastor from leaving the pulpit altogether, then let's find some hobbies.
Oh yeah, I had a book on my shelf. I love woodworking too. I don't do it probably. I wouldn't call it a hobby, but the book is called Sawdust Therapy. And there's just something about turning something on a lathe.
Oh yeah,
us away.
Yeah.
Now some people might choose golfing. I would never choose that because that does not take stress away from me. I've got a buddy of mine that is in ministry who builds knives.
Oh wow!
His own little forge in the garage.
That's incredible
to do that with. And so I do encourage you, find something, learn something, go to Votech, learn a new skill. I learn a lot of stuff off of YouTube. Just get on there and say, I've always thought about doing that. Let's see if I can do that.
I think one last hobby that I enjoy doing is outdoor cooking on an open flame. When I have time to do that. Now that's not a regular hobby of mine, but during the seasons that I can do that, that is my seasonal hobby, is cooking on an open flame. I absolutely love it. That's one of my favorites.
If you were to scroll through my Facebook or other social media, the algorithms there right now are to all these what they call slot grills, or these little portable open charcoal grill pits, and I'm just like you, buddy. I love eating the food too.
Yeah.
The cooking. That's something we got in common.
I think we do. Yeah. Mr. Lanny, this has been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for coming on this show, talking about hobbies, talking about mental health, talking about ministers and pastors, and how we can better help each other, better influence each other. Any last words?
Just thank you. It's been my pleasure. I always enjoy being around you. You're an encourager. And, that's the one thing I'm trying to be myself, is somebody that engages, somebody that encourages.
Well, I do enjoy it. I enjoy being around you, and I enjoy our discussions when we get the chance to have them. So I really do appreciate you coming on here, and I look forward to our next discussion.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you so much for listening. This is the 2412 podcast. I really do enjoy. Thank you for being a part of the show, and thank you for listening on the platforms that you are listening on currently. Guys, we'll catch you on the next show. Thanks. Bye. The 2412 podcast is a production of One Church Health Alliance and can be heard across multiple platforms such as Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. More platforms are coming soon. Music is produced by Suno.com. The 2412 podcast is written and edited by Jeff Holt. Executive producer is Jeff Holt and produced by Dr. Matthew Tanner. Additional information can be found at onechurchhealthalliance.org. Thank you for listening today. I hope you have a great rest of your day. God bless.